topics now, which is objections and the mindset of objections. Because I think, again, kind of like setting people up with realistic expectations and letting them know what to expect, if you can give them good tools to work with objections. I like to say work with or chat about them. I don't like to say overcome them and that type of thing, because really your goal isn't to convince people. And sometimes when you get into the whole objection piece of it, it becomes a convincing match. And people get, the distributor gets defensive or the representative gets defensive, and, oh, what do you mean by that? Oh, well, let me tell you, and then they go back into sales mode. Well, let me tell you why, blah, 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 and we have this and everything else. So the goal really isn't to convince. And the other thing that you want to do when someone has questions or objections, you want to really make sure, A, that it's a valid question, and B, that they're a valid prospect. So sometimes people who aren't really a valid prospect throw out these objections just kind of because for whatever reason they just can't say no. They just can't say, oh, you know what, thanks, but I'm really not interested. So instead, they think it's going to be easier on you if they drag you along without actually saying yes or no. So that's another key thing is to teach people that it's okay to say, listen, you can tell me no. It's okay, you're not going to hurt my feelings. If you're not interested, this isn't for you. Just tell me right up front. I'm totally good with that, And then that gives them an outlet right away. And sometimes you'll find when you use that, it relaxes them almost. They know that they're not going to be put on the spot, and sometimes that puts them into more receptive mode, knowing that you're not going to hard sell them, that you're not there to absolutely get them to sign on the dotted line or that type thing. So the ones that I typically like to go through, I like to go through time. That one's pretty quick. Money, the MLM pyramid question, and then the sales thing, and then think about it. Those are the 5 that I like to go through. So, time's pretty quick. There's not a lot to spend on overcoming that when people say, oh, I really don't have the time. If you've done a good job of asking the probing questions that get to the heart of why they might be doing this, then it's kind of one of those things that you can come back to with, okay, well, I get that this business isn't for you, but you indicated, that you're trying to accomplish X, Y, Z. What are you thinking that you're going to do to facilitate that or to accomplish that or whatever it is? Because you kind of want to, what you want to do is delve into, again, is the time just an objection that they're using because they can't say no, or is it really that? And again, I don't spend a whole lot of time with it, but I like to ask that question because usually their posture, what they say, their body language gives me an indicator, is that really the objection? And then if they're like, well, I don't really know, I know I need to solve that, but I'm so busy with this, this, and this, then I'll say to them, well, could you find, or would you find 3 15-minute pockets of time each day where you could make a couple of phone calls? Would you be willing to do that, accumulating over time to accomplish whatever that goal is that you're trying to do? So that's an important part of it. What I try to do is model for them, look, this isn't a business that we're asking you to do full-time, or that most people do full-time. This is a business that's best built initially with small pockets of time. And it doesn't have to be, a 2-hour block of time every day. Sometimes people get their mind around that they're going to, if we say 5 to 10 hours a week, they're thinking they have to find that all at once. But if we can show them where they can break that up in the day with little 15, 20-minute segments, make a couple of phone calls in the morning, and working the time zones too. Maybe, like I shared before, spending 15 minutes in your car on your lunch break, if nothing else, to make a couple of phone calls. Pulling over at Starbucks on your way home so that you don't try to walk in the house and get it done, because that's crazy if you've been working full-time. Pull over at Starbucks, make a couple of calls from your car there, but just those little things to set appointments and move things forward. Would you be willing to do that? And sometimes when you can present the time objection in that way, where they realize they're not going to be trying to find 5 to 10 hours all at once, we're talking about little chunks of time, then you can kind of move that process along. So that's kind of the time objection. Money, a lot of times, well, it's great, but I really can't afford it. And what I always tell people is, getting you signed up is not the most important thing. Like you clicking submit and putting your credit card in or whatever, that's not the most important thing. If the money weren't an issue, is this something that you would get started with today? Would you get started building this today? And again, that's giving them the out to either say, oh no, I still don't think it's for me. Great. If you're looking for a yes or a no, you're not looking for a maybe. But if they say, well, yeah, I would, then I say, well, let's get started then. We don't need to. Who can you think of? Who are 3 people we can call right now Have them do what we did. Have them watch the video, have them listen to a webinar or whatever. Who can we talk to now to generate interest? Because again, anytime you're dealing with a person, it's not just them, it's the 250 people standing behind them. And so even if you don't end up getting them signed up, if you can get them to connect you with 2 or 3 people or more from their circle of influence, that's what you're ultimately looking for anyway. So if you can get them motivated enough to make a couple of calls with you there or whatever, that also indicates, yeah, that they are interested and that the money isn't just an objection, you know, a way of saying, oh, no. And if they say, well, no, I'm really not ready, well, then you know that, I mean, you truly have someone who's not ready right now. That doesn't mean they won't ever be, but don't spend a whole lot of time trying to overcome that and that type of thing. So that's kind of the money issue. And then the MLM pyramid, the biggest thing when people ask that question is first and foremost not to get defensive, and that's the hardest thing for most people, because when they hear pyramid they immediately think, oh, are you trying to say I'm doing something illegal, or you know, whatever it is. So you want to avoid them becoming defensive, but you want to stay the adversary, or you don't want to become adversarial. You want to stay, you know, like their buddy in that. And so what I always like to say is, well, you know, what do you mean by that first? What do you mean by pyramid? Because sometimes, you know, I used to have this long defensive spiel that I would get into about corporate America and the government, and it was a pyramid and blah, 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 and, you know, people were kind of like, whoa, that's not even what I was saying, all right, chill out. And so what I realized is just by asking, well, what is it, what do you mean by that? They would, a lot of times they would describe network marketing. Well, you know, it's one of those companies where you get started and then you get a few people started and they're under you and then you get a few others. That's fine. Nothing to be defensive about. And then I'll say, yeah, I mean, it is. We're actually a legal network marketing company, whereas, you know, most pyramid schemes are illegal. But yes, it does have that shape. And then I move them right on from there. And, you know, we move beyond that. But if it is a negative thing that they're relating to, then I will say to them, well, tell me, what's your experience? What is your experience with MLM? Because what you want to get to, is it a personal experience or is it a hearsay experience? So if it's a personal experience, then the ultimate goal is to bring them down to what